Busy week. Congratulations on the closing. Well, so nice segue into being on the list. So this partly I wanted to talk about this is actually really good timing because of the listening to the call, the game film call that I did with Jonathan, and the customer at the front end of it told him that he was talking to another lender before Jonathan had spent any time with him. And I think all of our tendencies is to respond non-confrontationally without being, a dick, non-confrontationally with that response, with when you hear that, right? And so the timing of it was really good because I was listening to a call, one of the group coaching calls that I was on with Amir, the Go Coaching platform, Amir Syed, and somebody asked him this question. Like, what do you say? What is your scripting for when a borrower tells you, or you think you might be one of three lenders? And so he laid out this script that was like, dude, that's really powerful. And so I'm gonna read it to you because I retyped it. I had a replay of the call, and then on the replay, like you can get the transcript. And so I just copied and pasted it, and it would be really hard. So I had to retype it into something that made sense because every word that comes out of his mouth is part of the transcript, and that's not going to work. But it's like, hey, Mr. Borrower, I'm so excited to support you. How do you know Jackie, the realtor? Right. So when you're first talking to the customer the first time, how do you know the realtor? Right. And so, and they go on to explain all the reasons. Once they tell you how they met, you go on to tell them all the reasons why they're lucky to be working with Jackie, the realtor. Right. So whatever your scripting for that is. And I heard some really good scripting. So Casey was on a call that they did at Go Coaching a couple of days ago, which is why he signed up. That's who he signed up his coaching with. And by the way, it doesn't cost anything, Casey. You're making an investment that will pay off. I was thinking about that when you said, oh, I got to tell Tess I'm spending, what is it, $9,000 or something, $9,800. And I was like, you're not spending $9,800. You're investing $9,800 in Casey Clement, which is I fucking make that investment every day, because it's going to pay off in spades for you. So tell me, how did my name come? Oh, if you think you're one of the three, right? So in the situation where you think you're one of three, you're not the only one, right? It's like, so tell me how my name came up when you were speaking with Jackie. And what you're trying to find out is, were you one of the three lenders? That's if that's what you think might happen. And then here's what you say next. If they say that, well, she gave me 3 cards, she gave me 3 lenders that I should talk to, and you're one of them. Okay, thanks. Well, like I said, I'm excited to support you, and I'm excited to be one of the lenders on her list, which is complete bullshit, right? But do you thanks, I'm excited to be one of the lenders on her list. Have you had conversations yet with those other 2 lenders? And whether they did or they didn't, you could embellish this. So I'm going to send you this Word doc, but and if they have, this is his response. Like, oh, you have. How has that experience been? Because usually I find people are not really that empowered or educated after calls with most lenders. So how did those calls go? Right. And they'll usually tell you that it went okay, or that it was all right. They're not, if it was amazing, they wouldn't make the next call, would they? I can't imagine that. Like, if you blew me away, like, dude, I'm working with this guy. Right. But if you didn't, I'm like, yeah, I talked to one. I haven't heard back from the other one. It's like, okay. Well, because usually, so did you walk off of those calls maybe not having all your questions answered? Is there anything that's still lingering a little bit? And what you're doing here is you're just kind of poking holes without being insulting. Because what you'd really like to say is, oh, I know that slut. She's terrible. Like, you can't be insulting, right? Like you can't say what you want to say. You just want to like, okay, well, I just have found that most lenders so was there any questions lingering? Like, did you leave that conversation, with some questions unanswered? And whatever they say, they're going to say, yeah, no, it was okay. They're usually going to say it went okay. That's really typically what you're going to hear, is that, yeah, it went okay. Yeah, it was fine. Yeah, I liked it, but they didn't like it enough to not call you, right? That's the point, is that, why are you calling me? Like, there's something that you didn't like. It's not, or you would have just said, wow, that was great. I don't need to call anybody else. So the next line, and this is great. Well, I can tell you this. I can assure you that by the end of our call, you will not walk away that way. I'm going to make sure that you're fully educated. I'm going to take my time with you and to make sure you get all your questions answered. Does that sound good? Yes. Okay. So I asked you for something before you get off the phone with me today. I'm going to ask you how you're doing. I'm going to ask you if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or thoughts. And then I want you to be honest with me because I don't want you telling any other lender that you didn't get fully taken care of. Does that sound good? It's a really powerful, direct approach to this, right? And then at the end of the call, Mr. Bauer, I have very much enjoyed my time with you today. How was our time together for you? And they're going to say, yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was great. Was it helpful? Yeah, it was very helpful. Thanks. I really appreciate it. What was one thing you took away that was really helpful? Like reiterate. I love that. Like, what was one thing you took away that was really helpful? Because now they're just reinforcing for themselves. Like, dude, you were awesome. Like, I really appreciate the knowledge. Now I understand how mortgages work and excellent. Can I ask you a favor? As soon as we get off this call, can you text message the realtor and tell her about your experience with me? My name and reputation is really strong in the industry, and I want to make sure I'm held in high regard with my peers. Would you mind doing that for me? They'll do it. And then he has a whole nother follow-up to the realtor when you call the realtor after they've gotten the text. You wait a little bit, and then you call the realtor and go, did you get a text from Mr. Bauer? Yeah, I did. Did you get a text from Mr. Bauer after the other lenders called him? Yeah, how don't you quit referring them? Like, there's a whole scripting. I didn't type that part of it up because I want to just stay on this one for now. But Ryan shared with me, we were talking in the kitchen this morning at breakfast. It was really good. It was really good. And I'm not, Jonathan, totally not picking on you. I think Jonathan's response to what this customer said to him was pretty typical of the response that most lenders would have when the customer said, yeah, I'm talking to another lender. His response was, okay, cool. Yeah, no, I understand. And I'm like, I don't. Like, why are you calling me? Like, I don't want to work. I don't want to spend time on this. The most expensive loan that you're going to do and the most expensive time that you're going to spend is working on a loan you're not doing. And you're never going to get paid for it, right? So the amount of time that you invest in a loan you're not doing costs you a fortune. Right. So if I'm not doing it, let it go. There's plenty of others. And I know that's hard to do when you don't have a lot of leads and you don't have a lot of activity. And that only makes you feel worse. My experience is that just makes you feel worse because you're really trying. And now there's a lot of anxiety in the approach. And I just think being professionally, eloquently confrontational, because you do need to surface this. If you don't, and you just leave it lying there, yeah, it's just, you haven't addressed it. And the customer, you're going to leave the decision up to the customer when you could lead the decision. And I want to lead the decision. Ryan, why don't you share what you did? Because I love this approach, and you had a really positive response to this. And we hadn't talked about this scripting yet. So go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, to reiterate, basically before yesterday, I was like, Jonathan, I just like dodge it like the plague, basically. Like, if I hear like, okay, I just didn't want them to talk about it, And like, I think it's the opposite. We should just dive into it as much as possible. And I was pretty like, I used to be Mr. Smiley on my Zooms and like be all nice to him. And Dave's like, what the hell are you doing, dude? So like, I've kind of taken this very like stoic approach to Zooms a little bit more. And I knew who this guy was shopping with. G knows who Jody Amend is. Like, she's the firefighter lender, and I work with some firefighters. She's not that good, which is helpful for me. But when he was like, all right, I'm taking notes down for the other lender, I was like, are you shopping, or like, have you already talked to Jody? And they're like, yeah. I was like, okay. And I kind of like let the conversation go. And then I said something to the tone of like, I just kind of dove into it some more. Like, how is that going with Jody? Have you gotten numbers from her yet? Like, yeah. I mean, I just like your numbers a lot more. You're explaining things more. And she sent me over 10% down. And that's like way uncomfortable for me. So they got the perception that like they can only qualify for 10% down, which I mean, at least with me, they can qualify for 5% way higher in price. And so, and her, like she showed him like with a point. So closing costs were a lot higher, and they just implied everything on their own. And it kind of made me think like we could even do a better job of like asking the question of like, yeah, so have they sat down and gone over this with you like I'm doing right now? And we know the answer is going to be no all the time, right? And then we can dive into that script a little bit more like, yeah, okay, that's one of the reasons why, I'm having a lot of success or why I work with X, Y, and Z, a lot of da. But I think coupling it with your script will be super big because I think once they realize that we're doing more work on the front end, the process is going to be even better throughout too, right? If somebody's not willing to explain things to you, imagine how the rest of the process is going to go too.
Yeah, I always found it interesting that the customer would, and maybe it's because of my, you know, high D, I want to be done with this thing. I have to, I getting the mortgage is not the fun part of buying a house. Let's be honest. It's buying the house is the fun part of buying a house. Moving into a new house is the fun part. Getting the mortgage is like, shit, I have to get a mortgage. Right. And so I'm the type of person, if I meet the person and I like the person, I'm working with them because I like them. And I make decisions like that really quickly and to my detriment at times. But for sure, I just want to work with the person that I like and trust. And that's who I want to work with. I always found it interesting when somebody was like telling me, they're like, oh yeah, and I'm talking about that. Like, you are? Why? Like, okay, why are you talking to me then? That's what I didn't understand. I was like, well, did you not like them? You must not like them because you're talking to me now. It just made sense to me that there must be something missing. And I wanted to surface that out. And so I used to ask, like, how's that going? I
Yeah.
just like, so how's it going? And I think I asked somebody once, like going, I like to do business with people I know, I like and trust. Do you not like them or do you not trust them? No, I like them. Oh, so it's trust? It's like, well, no, I think I trust them. I was like, okay, well, when we get off this call, I want you to do both. I want you to like me and trust me. So let's go through the education of how mortgages work. Something else that came up with Jonathan that I realized that maybe some of you might be doing, and, shame on me for not spending more time with Jonathan on this on the front end, but I used Mortgage Coach not as a tool at the front end to show people the mortgage they're trying to get and all the different ways that we could put together. I used Mortgage Coach as the tool to educate people how mortgages work. My goal was, and my story was about how I got 3 or 4 mortgages before I got in the mortgage business, and I paid too much for all 3 or 4 that I got because nobody explained to me how mortgages worked. Everybody just put a fee sheet in front of me and said, here, this is what you're paying. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what I'm paying. And I didn't know that I didn't have to do that. So I'm going to show you no closing cost loans. I'm going to show you no point loans. And I'm going to show you a loan with a point so you can see how all of it works. And then I'm going to help you make the decision that's best for you. But I'm not going to try to like craft the financing solution to this one particular transaction that you're trying to do. And I think, Jonathan, one of the mistakes that we uncovered is that he told you what he wanted. And so you crafted that. And my response to that was like, well, now you're just kind of being an order taker. First, let me like, okay, I understand. Let me show you how mortgages work. Because nobody explained this to me. And when they didn't explain it, like, I didn't know what I was doing. I just bought with like, okay, I don't. So I always want somebody who's more knowledgeable than me to educate me. And I hope that's what I'm going to do for you. I want to be able to educate you how this process works. And then you get into like the actual loan that they're trying to put together and how you structure that financing. Right. So, anybody other feedback? Let me hear from some other folks that have had lots of conversations like this.
Can I just add one thing really quick too?
Please.
I think it's a lot easier to have those like really upfront conversations the more that you've been able to build rapport with them and become friendly with them, like
For
from
sure.
discovery call to Zoom, right? Because now if they feel like you're friends and you feel that rapport, then it's easier for you to be like, dude, like, okay, tell me what I need to do here, kind of thing, rather than being like Mr. Salesy loan officer that's trying to get somebody to commit to you, right?
Yeah, like and trust, right? People do business with people they like and people they trust. G, got anything?
Good stuff. I like your script. I'm gonna have to like read it and change it up.
Yeah,
and
you got it.
analyze
So let's
good
for sure.
I've tried what you said now, like through the years at some point. It's usually when I'm irritated, where I'm like, well, did you not like the other lender? Like, why it did not answer your questions? Why are we talking? And usually it does not go over well for me, probably because I am annoyed. And so it comes across that way. But no, I mean, it just depends on that first conversation, but, I don't know. I feel like anytime, I mean, for me, the key has always been the Zoom, not always, for probably the past 6 years has been like the face-to-face meeting or the Zoom meeting. And once you go through that, after the initial phone call and you have all the solutions and you do all the education, I mean, I can probably count on one hand the times that people shopped after that and left for another lender in all those years. If you don't do that, it's like, what's irritating to me is like last week I did like a rush pre-approval on a Thursday night into a Friday morning really early. And then when you do that, sometimes you get burned, and that's what's really irritating, because like they got the letter, now they're making the offer, and like you really haven't had, besides for your time, you don't know that they don't know that like you took time away from your family or whatever to do that, or got up really early to do that. So those are the ones that piss me off. Because you just haven't had enough time to really show any value or create any value, except for giving them what they want. But when you're doing it in limited time, there's not
Yeah, that's
there's
always
no
the risk.
meaning, so.
I'm wondering if, and then we worked on some scripting, on, that script that I shared earlier this year after we got back from Park City, the one that Josh Metal shared, where it was, we spend about $1,000 getting your loan pre-approved in advance. Are you ready to commit to me and my team, to help you to get this done? Are you ready to commit? Because it's not fair for me to do all that work and I don't get paid a salary to do this. So are you going to commit? Are you ready to commit? And being that direct when somebody, especially when I wonder if doing that during that rush, if you're getting rushed to get a pre-approval done, it's like, look, it's Friday. You need this pre-approval. Are you working with me? Because I got to do this tonight. Yeah. I'm going to be spending time. My wife and kids are downstairs watching a movie with the fire on, and I would love to be down there with them. I'll get this done for you. Are you committing to me? I don't know. Yeah.
It's usually not, I mean, they usually do. It's just sometimes if it's jumbo and stuff, those are the ones that, right. You're a little more uncomfortable, got to double, I don't do that many jumbos. So I got to like always pull up the guidelines and double check everything. And then, they go to like a local bank and it's like a 1% lower. And I'm like, fuck, okay. Like there's no way I can show, like, I just got an email from Dean right now, right? About, he's like, hey, I don't know, you're good at replying to people when they say thanks, but no thanks. So I'm just reading it and like, this is your lead from the builder.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't even want to schedule a call because they're like, the builder's offering 5% FHA with $10,000 credit. Well, like there's nothing we can do that's remotely close to that. So, I mean, I don't know that there's a magical answer to that question. Maybe you can offer to, be available to them if they have any questions, kind of negative cross sell the builder's lender. Like, hey, they are not known for answering questions and this is the largest debt of your life. So I just want you to know I'm here to help. Review whatever they send you, because I know it can be confusing. And then sometimes you might get the opportunity, like they might send something over and it's like, I mean, I've seen stuff from builders where, like they're pushing a 20% down borrower with good credit into an FHA loan. And you're like, well, let me show you like the difference and explain why that's not what you should do. And, some of those maybe you can pick off every once in a while, but if they're an FHA borrower, no one except the builder, because, we're not going to lose 30 grand doing a loan, right? You want to get paid to do the loan, is going to offer a 5% 30-year fixed rate plus a $10,000 seller credit. Like there's no, I mean, I don't know if anyone else has a better answer to that, but I mean,
no, there's definitely loans over the years where I just said, dude, you got to use the builder. I'm like, dude, use the builder. I wouldn't use me. But when because there's like a forward commitment, there's something out there that's called a forward commitment. If they're offering 5% down or 5% interest rate in this market, they did a forward commitment. They paid a bunch of money up front to have a certain amount of funds available. and Richmond owns their own mortgage company, and it's a full-on correspondent lending company, just like Zenith is. So it's, if they've done that and they have the funds, they build the funds for that shit into the price of the home, right? So, I mean, the house is $575,000, but it's really $530,000. But there's an extra $45,000 that the buyer's paying for, but they still have to pay $575,000 for the house. And the $45,000 spread is going towards the loan cost, right? So it's not like you can't compete with that. And so, like, let them go. I mean, that sucks, but yeah, let them go.
Well,
Offer
but
to help
at the
when we
same,
do the numbers, and they probably won't take you up on it, but you come off like the good guy.
Right.
Right. And tell them you're going to monitor their mortgage after.
Yeah.
So if it ever gets to 4% or whatever,
Adopt
you
the mortgage,
do
right,
a refinance for them. And that's about it, I think.
it can hands down though be a future deal, like, especially if it's like a Richmond or a Pulte, because those guys aren't doing refis. They're only doing the purchases for.
Yeah,
the
they'll never
builder.
hear from the lender again.
Right. So you can easily adopt that into your database.
You're my future customer. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
be your future. Yeah, I'll be
my
the one who
question-
I'll put them in HomeBot. Like, you can treat it like you did the loan.
So they're already approved for this VA rate? Like, they've already gone through the approval process with.
I'm assuming they are, because they said that's what they're offering.
So why did the guy
this
give
might
him
be
your
some-
name?
Right, that's the question. Is these guys might have a tricky file, they might have something odd, and that's why they're sending it to you. So just stay in touch with them, because they might actually go through the approval process with Richmond, and those guys don't. They do vanilla loans, right? They don't know the intricacies of the guidelines. So
Well, and
it may come back to you where you can save that by being the expert and showing them a different way to do the loan.
Yeah,
Well,
that's why I
this-
offered to explain what they're going to get, because they're not going to get any explanation.
Yeah.
And FHA loan is not the right loan for most people, as we can tell by our production, right? When you look back, what is it, 10% of the loans that we do? So,
No, it's not. It's
not
less.
even. I mean, it was 15 years ago, but now it's less, right? So just be there to offer and help. And like Casey said, I've had some builder deals that I was able to get because they're like, they really can't figure out how to get this deal done. And like literally this guy had to, instead of putting down 20%, had to put down 15 and pay off a car. And it was like a slam dunk deal. And like no one could figure it out at the builder's end, right? So you just have to, stay in touch and be friendly enough up front and offer to help, and they may come back.
Well, and the sales rep even said that they'd be willing to knock $10,000 off the price if they went with us as opposed to going with their lender. So I like the idea of, hey, let me see if I can let me help see if I can guide you through the numbers. If you still decide you want to use that's fine, but help me.
This is weird. So this is really strange to me, because the rep gave you the name and they think we're going to get this. Yeah, thanks anyway, but I got this 5% interest rate. It's like, so are you approved? And then maybe Dean, I don't know, you need more information. So I can't answer all the what ifs here. Nobody can, but
Well, and I
call the
had
rep back and ask the rep, like, why did you give me this name? And they think they're getting a 5% interest rate from you. What's the deal? Because are they not getting the loan? Have you told them they're not getting the loan yet? Like, that's what I'd want to find out. So whatever I have to do for that.
Emotion to that as well, right? You've got to get into that. You just, call it out direct. Just say, hey, look, as a friend, do you trust me enough to believe that I will get you everything that you're hoping to get you approved for the maximum what we can do? So tie that in, make sure you're throwing that in as a friend. Do you trust me? Do you believe that I will do what's in your best interest and get you everything that you can possibly want out of this? Like, put some accountability back on them.
I would also, if she's a single mom, one of the conversations I have with clients is, one of my driving forces in my business is that when you're buying a home, you want a lender that can perform and perform on time. The last thing I ever want to do is have somebody in the position, and I always think of my wife and myself sitting there in box. I mean, granted, this is getting a little antiquated because everyone's taxes are electronic nowadays, but you know, last minute they're asking for more documentations, and we've already packed up, and my wife has already picked out paint colors, and my kids are excited to move into their new homes. And I'm sitting there at 11 o'clock at night trying to find these documents that suddenly the lender needs. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do with my family if I don't get this home? Where am I going to put them? And I think as a single mom, that's probably a very big driving force. And sometimes people need to understand on purchases, especially, that it's substantially more important that the lender can perform than it is for them to get some pie in the sky rate. So I might want to try switching that conversation with her to that, hey, what happens if that lender can't perform? What happens if something comes up in the last minute? Because it doesn't, we have a guarantee, you know, we have $1,000 a day that we're going to perform. Is that lender willing to do it? What happens? Where are you guys going to go if something like that goes down?
Sell the pain.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's goes back to that script I shared in the PLP meeting this week, which was all 3 times my wife and I, or the first time that my wife and I bought a house, we like a couple days before closing, they're calling me, asking me for W-2s. I was like, dude, am I getting this loan? Why do you need this now? My shit's packed up. I got boxes in my kitchen here. Like, what are we doing? And like, yeah, sell the pain because, and then you can't be desperate. That's the thing. I guess that's the thing I want to make sure that you get across to the newer people is you don't be desperate. Like you got to believe in your value. And if they don't want to work with you next, it's okay, but you got to believe in your value, right? You can't feel like, you should want to work with me. It's like, no, they shouldn't. Nah, it's okay. Most will, some won't. Just remember that some won't next, because that's, again, you can end up spending time and not get anywhere with it. And then like some of the stuff that goes on is nonsensical, right? And then most of the time, I will tell you that most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time when I didn't get the deal, the customer hated the other lender's process. They hated the experience. And they used me the next time. That was most of the time, not every time, because every now and then they got somebody like Giuseppe and Chris and Jack. I mean, they got people that had their shit together, but that was not the normal, right? That was not what was normal. And mostly it was, mostly it was crap. Mostly it was a terrible transaction. And so, and a lot of times they'd come back because the loan they thought they were going to get isn't coming together. And now they need me to save it. Not a lot, but that happened to 20% of the time. They're all like, I'm still doing the loan. So anyway, I'll get this script to you guys. Have fun with it. But type it up into your own words, internalize it. You've got to it's got to just roll off your tongue, right? It's got to be very natural. It's got to sound like you have all the confidence in the world that like, hey, this is what I'm going to do for you. And then follow through. I love the end. I love the questions at the end. Was it helpful? How did you enjoy your time? I have enjoyed our time together today. Was it good for you? Was our time together how was it for you? Was it helpful? What was one of the things you took away that was really helpful?